Coming up, I'll comment on the implications of Joe Biden getting out of the presidential race for 2024. Political commentator Caitlin Sinclair, she's spokesperson for Turning Point Action, joins me. We're going to talk about who's going to replace Biden and whether Trump is now unstoppable on his path to victory. Hey, if you're watching on Rumble, listening on Apple, Google, or Spotify, please subscribe to my channel. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
America needs this voice. The times are crazy. In a time of confusion, division, and lies, we need a brave voice of reason, understanding, and truth. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
Joe Biden is getting out of the 2024 presidential race. That's the big news from yesterday. Biden issued a statement, came out almost unexpectedly. I thought it's interesting that it seemed to be a post on X. And it's, Elon Musk has been saying for a while now that X is the place where you go to get news. And it turned out to be true in this case. And then shortly after, Biden comes out and endorses Kamala Harris. Now, this is a very interesting development on many, many counts. First of all, it doesn't look like Biden did this willingly. In fact, he's been resisting having to do this, and pressure has been accumulating. It seems to me that he probably did it in the end for this reason. He realized that you've got all these prominent figures on the left, ranging from media figures to entertainment figures to prominent political figures, Democrats and donors, all of whom were essentially saying Joe Biden is not up to the job going forward. Leave aside the question of whether he can even continue to the finish line of this term. He certainly can't go another term. And so that becomes just powerful ammunition for the Republicans. How do you win a race when your own side is telling you to get out? And so Biden, it seems, finally decided, all right, well, the scales have tipped, and I have got to get out. Now, I'm going to predict that over the next several days, we're going to see a massive praise of Biden. Oh, he has put his country first. He has set aside his personal interests. First of all, we don't even know if that's true. It's quite possible that Biden has made some sort of a backroom deal with Democratic donors. Hey, listen, you want me to get out? All right, it's going to cost you. This guy is very transactional. Look, I normally wouldn't even suggest something like this, except we know that Biden's been collecting money from the Romanians and the Panamanians and the Ukrainians and the Chinese. So this guy is up for sale to the highest bidder. And who's to say that the Democratic donors haven't coughed up more cash than the Chinese? Biden may well be set for life. I mean, there's not a whole lot of his life left, but there is Jill Biden and there is the Biden family, and so this guy is a racketeer. I mean, I don't share any of this kind of nostalgic or soft feelings towards the guy. He's corrupt. He's dishonest. He's a mean-spirited, callous guy. I mean, good riddance to Joe Biden. And he's just been a horrible president. Now, has he been the worst president in U.S. history? I think I'd have to say yes, just given the way in which the Biden regime is carried out in the past few years. Even worse than Obama. Obama's probably more malevolent, more cunning in terms of motives, more evil than Biden. I don't think Biden's motives are evil, but Biden has presided over an evil regime. And even if he's not all there, even if he's the ventriloquist dummy, even if he's the puppet, even if somebody else is steering the canoe, he has been okay with all that. And he's been okay with all that, I think, for reasons of his own personal and family benefit. So That's the first point to make about this guy. Now, he's obviously he's not quitting the presidency. It's a good question to ask why, because this guy is certainly not capable. But I think that if he were to quit, it would be a very damning admission, not just by him, but all the people around him and all the leading Democrats, all the people who said that Biden's okay, Biden can do the job. They're all going to be exposed as frauds and liars. They're going to essentially confess that we have had a blind man leading us, so to speak, blind here in the mind, not so much in the eyes, and that the country has been in a very perilous state for that reason. In fact, they keep talking about saving democracy, and we need to save democracy in 2024. What kind of democracy is it when you've got a guy, and let's leave aside whether he stole the 2020 election, of course he did, but let's leave aside the question of his legitimacy. Legally, the guy is the president. And so if he's not steering the canoe, well, who is? Who has actually been running the country, and who elected those people? No one. So quite disturbingly, we've had a kind of gang or junta running the country for the past several years, with Biden being their sort of wavy doll who goes forward, and fumblingly so. I mean, I think to these people's dismay, the ventriloquist doll basically, ran out of battery and fell down. And it's like, oh my gosh, our whole scheme has now been disrupted. So the Democrats have had to scramble. They've had to reboot. They've had to reorganize. And they're taking a big risk here because, there are a couple of possibilities. It could be that there is a scramble for who's going to succeed Biden. But I think Biden's endorsement of Kamala Harris is kind of significant because it means that the money that Biden has collected can go to Harris. It means that Biden can sort of tell his delegates to vote for Harris. This would put Harris in a probably invincible position to get the Democratic nomination. And so it looks like in 2024 it's going to be Trump Vance on the one side and Kamala Harris with a hand-picked running mate on the other. We live in turbulent times. Here's just one indication. Sales of oil have historically been predominantly in US dollars. Recently, oil producers like Saudi Arabia have been exploring options for sales in other currencies. Oil sales in other currencies would lessen the demand for the US dollar. So I ask you, if there's less demand for the US dollar, what happens to the US dollar? Not good. Look, it's reasons like this that I buy gold from Birch Gold, why I feel they're a valuable resource for you as well. For over 20 years, Birch Gold Group has helped tens of thousands of Americans protect their savings by converting an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. To learn more, text Dinesh to 989898. Claim your free information kit on gold. It's no obligation, just information. Birch Gold has earned my trust with their education-first approach. There are thousands of happy customers. There are countless 5-star reviews. So protect your savings with gold before the dollar plunges any further. Text Dinesh to 989898 today. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the increasing cost of health insurance? Have you had enough of not having control over your healthcare dollars? Introducing ShareRight, ShareRight. It's healthcare done the right way. At ShareRight, you're not just a number, you're part of a caring community. Forget about paying excessive premiums. With ShareRight, you stand to save 30 to 50% compared to health insurance. Think about what you could do with all those savings. But it's more than just savings. ShareRight ensures you have access to the care you deserve precisely when you need it, from routine checkups to unexpected emergencies. With ShareRight, your healthcare is their top priority. So empower yourself today by taking control of your healthcare costs. Visit joinshareright.org/Dinesh to learn more. See how much you can save. Visit joinshareright.org/Dinesh. That's joinshareright.org/Dinesh for healthcare done the right way. Guys, my guest today is political commentator Caitlyn Sinclair. She's currently spokesperson for the leading conservative advocacy group, Turning Point Action. Before this, she was New York City-based senior political correspondent for One America News Network. You can follow her. The website is just tpusa.com. On social media, follow her on X at C Sinclair TV. Caitlin, welcome. Thanks for joining me. Boy, there's a heck of a lot happening. Let's start with the big announcement from yesterday. Joe Biden is getting out of the 2024 race. Now, is this something that you expected to happen, or did you think that this guy would hang in there and have to be dragged out by a group of pallbearers?
Well, I'm looking at this, Dinesh, as Jill Biden actually just dropped out of the race, because we all know what was going on behind the scenes. But first of all, what a week it has been coming out of the RNC, which was just such an incredible experience. I'm still decompressing and debriefing and trying to go through all the beautiful moments that occurred over this past week. But of course, leave it to the Democrats who try to steal the attention here. I don't think that Sunday announcement was a coincidence. Does this surprise me? Yes and no. I think a lot of us conservatives were kind of hoping that Mr. Biden stayed in this race, and you heard him, right? This man keeps going back and forth. He said he wasn't going anywhere. And then, of course, this announcement yesterday. So it doesn't quite surprise me. I think we've known his true cognitive decline for a while now. What concerns me, Dinesh, and what I think is the most troubling part of all of this, is that it took the mainstream media, the propagandist machine, the elites, to tell half the American people how to think. The fact that half of the American people were not aware of this commander-in-chief's cognitive decline and his mental abilities, as long as us conservatives have been aware and those paying attention have been aware, there was no discernment here. I think we've lost the art of thinking in this country, Dinesh. And what worries me the most out of this situation is that half of the American people were waiting on the propagandist machines to tell them how to think. And that should scare everyone.
I mean, what I got from the journalists who were kind of emoting about all this is that they seem to fall into two camps. There was one camp that was fully aware that Biden was like half gone, and yet they were covering for him. It was sort of like they were playing the same game as the White House aides around Biden. Let's create a facade. Let's pretend the guy's okay. So this is the sort of deceitful camp. But there was evidently another camp, and I see this because these people are expressing wounded outrage. It was kind of we took your word that Biden was okay. We believed you Democrats when you told us that in private meetings the guy was crackling with sparkling intelligence and wit. Now, it's hard to believe that there are actually critically minded people, journalists, who were suckers and idiots in this mode, but evidently there were. And all these people sort of ganged up on Biden in the end because I think they felt betrayed by Biden and the people around Biden. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that. So definitely two camps for sure. But when you break that down further, I'm curious to see now how the rest of the country's reacting, right? Your average American layperson who's not involved in politics and was trusting the media, trusting a George Clooney, trusting a Barack Obama. So how is the average American now taking this, right? You take my generation, the millennial generation, and then the Gen Z generation coming up behind me. And these are the demographics we've been focused on at Turning Point Action. And these are young people that feel so disenfranchised by the mainstream media, by the elite class. And they've grown up, Dinesh, in a post 9/11 era, right? Where they've been hearing how great this country used to be, hearing about pride and patriotism. And they grew up already hearing that we can't trust the media, you can't trust the government. They were lied to during COVID. They have woken up now and realized that their time was stolen from them. They've been robbed. They've grown up with endless wars. We've grown up with now record high inflation. The American dream is completely wiped out. So my peers are starting to ask the questions and realizing they've been lied to for so long. And now, so you have that group, and then you have, I think, some Americans that are also starting to wake up and questioning the status quo, questioning what they've been told their whole lives. So I'm curious how those average Americans are reacting to this news and this kind of awakening as to what's been going on behind the scenes.
I mean, one of the dismaying realizations, and I have to admit that going back, for me to the Reagan era, to the 80s and 90s, this is something that never crossed our mind. I mean, it never crossed my mind in that era that, for example, the president is in his job to make money. In other words, that this is a racket, and yet what's happened now is not only do we not trust the CDC and the health institutes and the FBI and educational institutions, but it seems to me we almost now think of all politicians, particularly the Democrats, as running a racket. And so, for example, I think it was Peter Schweitzer who posted recently, well, the reason Biden is holding out is for every day he holds out, his price is going up. In other words, that Biden is going to be somehow compensated by the Democratic donors for, quote, making the right decision. And similarly, you think of a guy like Obama, a complete snake in the grass. I mean, this guy came right out after the debate, siding with Biden. I'm with Biden. Biden just had a bad night. And then we hear that for weeks, or at least for a little while now, Obama has been knifing Biden in the back, and Biden is really enraged at Obama. So we realize that these people are not what they seem. They're the opposite of what they seem, and that self-interest and, in fact, enriching themselves has been an important part of how the Clintons got ahead, how Obama got ahead, and how the Bidens got ahead.
Yeah. And again, Dinesh, coming off the RNC last week, I think that sentiment was so echoed, right? You have a family like the Bidens, you have a family like the Clintons, and then you have your average American, your middle-class American that has felt like they are the forgotten American. And we now have a ticket, in a Trump-Vance ticket, and you have someone like a JD Vance who really, I believe, speaks to that forgotten American, kind of the sentiment you were just alluding to. We have a president-elect or a candidate and Donald Trump that really speaks to that sentiment, that is not doing this to enrich himself. He has no ulterior motive to be on that stage speaking to us, to be in this race. And he really wants to bring back the American dream. He wants to make this country safe again, wealthy again, great again. And I think coming off the RNC, most Americans are now waking up to your classic politician. I think more than longing for an America First agenda, which most Americans are, I believe this country is longing for authenticity. And you don't see that in someone like Joe Biden. You don't feel that in someone like Barack Obama, as popular as he was, but you get that in someone like a Donald Trump. And I think more and more, this country is longing for that. They're longing for less classic politician and people to just be real, right? If you're talking about a highly curated world that we're all so used to now, starting from social media to the Hollywood class, and now you have the Democrat elite, the corporate media, the billionaire donors that successfully pressured this candidate, chosen by the Democratic Party and his primary voters, to drop out, not because they care about the American people. Let's not be mistaken here. Not because they care about your average American, but because he's down in the polls and they are scared of losing. And the message here is that the Democrats are really destroying democracy in the pursuit of power. And that is as inauthentic as it gets.
I mean, I'm thinking about that word, authenticity. And I've been following Biden's social media posts now for many, many weeks. And nothing could be more obvious than that he is not doing it. In other words, they're not his posts. And in fact, this because he could be giving a public speech and posts are appearing while he's giving the speech. So obviously it couldn't possibly be him. Now,
bring back the mean tweets, Dinesh. Bring them back.
Here's my point. Leave aside whether they're mean or not. If you look at Trump's social media posts, they're so distinctive that even if you hired a whole team, nobody could really do it. I mean, Trump, he comes through in such a clear way. I mean, even his use of the typographical arts, unusual words are put into capital letters, multiple exclamation points, a very Trumpian vibe comes through. And whether you like it or not, it's like, that's Trump. Let's take a short pause. When we come back, more about Biden and more about Trump. You might have heard Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of their box stores or shopping channels the way they used to. They've been part of this terrible cancel culture, and so they want to pass the savings directly onto you by having a $25 extravaganza. Now, when Mike started MyPillow, it was just a one-product company, just the pillow. But with the help of his dedicated employees, Mike now has hundreds of products, some of which you may not even know about. So to get the word out, I want to invite my viewers and listeners to check out this $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-use MyPillows, $25. MyPillow sandals, $25. 6-pack towel sets, $25. Brand new 4-pack dish towels, you guessed it, $25. And for the first time ever, the premium MyPillows with the all-new Giza fabric, just $25. By the way, orders over $75 will get free shipping as well. The amazing offer won't last long. Here's the number to call, 800-876-0227. Again, it's 800-876-0227, or go to mypillow.com. When you use discount code Dinesh, you'll get the free shipping, you'll get the discounts. That's the way to do it. Guys, with this huge election year and everything up in the air, I'd like to invite you to check out my Locals channel and consider becoming an annual subscriber. I post a lot of exclusive content there, including content that's censored on other social media platforms. On Locals, you get Dinesh Unchained, Dinesh Uncensored. You can also interact with me directly. I do a live weekly Q&A every Tuesday. No topic is off limits. I've also uploaded some cool films to Locals, documentaries, feature films. The latest film, Police State, is up there. So is 2000 Mules. And big new film coming out this fall. If you're an annual subscriber, you can stream and watch this movie content for free. It's included with your subscription. So check out the channel. It's dinesh.locals.com. I'd love to have you along for this great ride. Again, it's dinesh.locals.com. I'm back with political commentator Caitlin Sinclair. Follow her on X at C Sinclair TV. She's currently spokesperson for TP USA. That's the website, tpusa.com. Caitlin, here's a question about Biden. You know, this guy, he's in a sense admitting, perhaps reluctantly, I'm not up to running again. I'm not up to it for the next 4 years. But of course, all of this raises an interesting question, which is, if that's true, how is he up to it now? In other words, if this is a guy who slips into confusion, bewilderment, who has these kinds of strange episodes, I mean, let's remember the President of the United States has his hand on the nuclear button. It is a complex job that requires 15, 16, maybe 18 hours a day. J.D. Vance has been making the point that, hey, if Biden can't do it in the campaign and over the next 4 years, he needs to quit now. Now, I think you and I both know I don't think he's going to quit now. And I would almost go further and say that if he were to quit now, you'd have to have a sort of, this would be a public confession on the part of the whole Democratic circle that they've been hiding this guy's mental decline for God knows how long. So they have to maintain, to a degree, that facade. So I guess Biden stumbles on from here on out through, well, not just November. He remains president until January.
I don't think they would recover from that, right? If they were to sort of admit that he needs to step down right now. But of course, that's the question that everyone's asking since the news, right? If he's not fit to run, then he is definitely not fit to serve. And I think we've, again, already been seeing that. This is a president, Dinesh, that has already admitted to the American people that he only works from the hours of 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. He takes at least, 3 ice cream breaks and probably 3 naps a day. And Jill Biden has to change his diaper probably 10 times a day. So this has already been kind of on the radar of the American people that are awake right now. So again, I don't know how surprising this news has been. But now we have a few interesting months ahead of us, right? This announcement definitely gives the Democrats time to come up with some plan. And I think we've all kind of been looking at the deterioration of the party, the elite, the Hollywood elitists and the liberal class, and wondering, how are they really deteriorating like this? Hot mess express is what I've been calling it. But it's been scary because the more messy the Democrats have been looking, it's made me wonder, is there some, secret plan here? Because they are way too calculated to be falling apart this badly.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we're not used to seeing this kind of confusion and infighting on the left. They're normally extremely disciplined. They all unite around, they all back their team to the hilt. What's going to happen now? In other words, it looks like, well, the Democrats have been saying this is an election about democracy. And it's a little bit of an irony because here's Joe Biden and he's got all these delegates and he has all this money. And yet it looks like he was pushed out by a cabal of journalists and donors. Because the donors came out and said, listen, not another penny unless you get out. And then the media has been pressing for him to get out. So how do the Democrats say with a straight face that we're the party of democracy when they just kicked out the guy who had the most votes by a mile? And meanwhile, Trump ran in a normal campaign. He essentially accumulated the votes. So in other words, democracy is manifesting itself on the Republican side, but now look at the Democrats.
Absolutely. The Democrats basically are rigging their own elections here, Dinesh. Like I said, it's been the Democrat elite, the corporate media, mainstream media, MSDNC, the Hollyweird liberals, the billionaire donors that have successfully now pressured this candidate to drop out. So the Democrats here are really destroying democracy, all in the pursuit of power, because that is all they care about. And this couldn't be more evident. You just alluded to Barack Obama, who was, guiding Joe Biden's hand off the stage just a few short weeks ago. We have someone like a George Clooney who was holding a huge fundraiser, bringing in millions, if not billions of dollars for Joe Biden. And then all of a sudden, a week later, he decides to say, this is not a man that's fit to serve. I think this all might have started that night after George Clooney's fundraiser when Obama had to escort Biden off that stage. I think that's when they all kind of knew that at least something had to change. Of course, I think they were aware of this commander-in-chief's cognitive decline for some time now. What happens next is we're going to have a few messy months. They're saying there's going to be a mini primary, not really a real primary. Joe Biden just put out that phony endorsement for Kamala Harris. So that's a big deal. But I don't know, is it enough of a deal? We're going to have to see.
I mean, one interesting question is whether one of the things that took out Joe Biden, oddly enough, is the assassin's bullet intended for Trump. In other words, Trump came out of that looking so strong, and then here's Biden feeble, isolated. I've got COVID, In other words, the contrast is just so vivid and so striking. Let me ask you about Kamala Harris. As a young person looking at your peers and looking at the younger generation, you've got this individual, Kamala, and, just leave aside her kind of levitating into politics in her early career. She is a ridiculous individual, I have to say. Trump calls her Laughin' Kamala, and of course he's referring to her hideous, Kamala. her hideous shriek that she lets out. Do you think that she will be? I mean, she is a black woman. She is running to be the first black female president. There is a certain kind of historical dimension there. Will she be a formidable candidate, or do you think she's going to be a complete joke?
I think this country has already looked like a complete joke, right? To our adversaries and those overseas watching us, I think we've been a complete joke. So to have someone like a Kamala Harris now at the top of this ticket, I think that's even more pathetic. And what worries me is who the demographic might be that is supporting someone like a Kamala Harris. And that would be single, young females. And I say this all the time. Please don't cancel me for this. But I genuinely believe it is the females out there that are responsible for the deterioration of this party in this country and our society right now. And I hate to say it, but I'm a female, so maybe I can get away with it here. But Dinesh, it's the females, especially the single young females that have either, gone through school right now with a lot of indoctrination, are not feeling connected to anything. We have such a problem right now with the young generation, with connectivity and with the sense of hopelessness out there. And there's no good role models. So they're turning to these females as part of, being a feminist to be a good role model. And they're lost. They don't even know what messages they stand for, right? They don't even know what to belong to. They just want to belong to something, which is why a lot of these young girls are getting involved with the pro-Hamas protests. They don't even know what the messaging is. They have no idea what they stand for. So I'm worried about the young single females in this country falling for the Kamala trap.
Are you saying, just to probe this psychologically for a moment, traditionally, people would say let's just say you take a confused young female who's a little uncertain about the past, the idea would be, all right, let's look and see if there is a strong man. And I don't mean a strong man, but I mean a strong man in leadership who might be able to make you feel better about the country. Are you saying that these young women have been inoculated and indoctrinated against looking to a strong guy like Trump, and instead told, no, you've got to find a female role model who is affirming her identity? And of course, who should pop up but Kamala Harris, who's almost like a walking ad for like DEI. And you're saying these young women are like, yeah, well, maybe she's going to help me feel better about myself. Is that it?
Yes, Dinesh, I think these young single women in this country right now have been brainwashed. They've been drinking way too much soy milk and seed oils, and they're lost. And they are claiming to be part of the feminist movement. No one represents the feminist movement less than someone like a Kamala Harris, who was 100% a DEI hire. And they're going to use things like the abortion issue we already know that plan, right? To try to reel in some of these women. And just naturally, again, I'm a female, so I think I can get away with this maybe more than you, but saying that females run on emotions, right? We saw during this failed assassination attempt, the female Secret Service agents. What was that? It was the natural female reaction is emotion. That is just how we're built. There is nothing wrong with it. Males and females, we are not equal. We are not the same. And we have to stop in this country pretending that we are. We are not made out for the same jobs. And what happened with those Secret Service agents is they were acting on emotion. They were reacting. And it looked like a mess. And of course, the country's been talking about that over this past week, but that's the same as these young women that I'm very concerned about falling for someone like a Kamala Harris, who's going to pretend to be the mama bear, pretend to represent femininity, and nothing could be more true. I do agree we need a strong man, not again, physically strong. We just need to remain in looking for masculinity and a man to actually take over as a provider and save this country. And women need to remain in their feminine nature. That's what I believe.
We'll be right back with Caitlyn Sinclair. I'm back with political commentator Caitlyn Sinclair. Follow her on X at @CSinclairTV. Caitlin, we were talking about the kind of the masculine-feminine divide. And now when I look at the Republican ticket, I look at Trump, I look at J.D. Vance, they're both pretty strong characters. I mean, we saw Trump's character under fire in the attempted assassination. I mean, that is just a level of masculinity. You know, who's the guy from the UFC, Dana White? He's like, this guy is like badass beyond comprehension. And
he called that moment, Dinesh, the most badass thing he's ever seen. I think that takes a lot for someone like Dana White, who's been in the ring for some time, to say. So that was pretty powerful. Yes.
In earlier generations, I think this race would be no contest, because Americans would be like, oh my gosh, it is so rare. Because think about it, there are so many people in our society who go around saying, I'm a tough guy, I've got a lot of courage. But you never know that until you are in a moment that tests it and gives you a chance to demonstrate. Again, not by play acting, because when Trump was in that moment, he had no time to he had to just react instinctively. and he brought out a dimension of the man. So in earlier generations, it would be like, wow, you have to go back to like Teddy Roosevelt to find a guy who is, ready to get in the ring with sumo wrestlers, a guy who's willing to like rush up the hill and get shot at. Teddy Roosevelt, a true fighter. Yeah. But we're in a more kind of complex environment now with all these different constituencies, and what seems like strength on one side may be scary to some other people who go, wow, I don't really want, this toxic masculinity is like too much for me. Do you think that the Republicans need to somehow feminize their campaign a little bit in order not to seem like they are too much on one side of the aisle?
I don't, because I believe in targeting low propensity voters. Because of my time at Turning Point, I've also learned that is the way we are going to win these races. We can't focus so much energy on trying to target and bring those people over that have already been so brainwashed. I think hopefully the men of this country will, especially when young female voters see the men of this country, the fraternity brothers that we're counting on to save this country, coming out in support of a fighter like Donald Trump. I'm hoping that would bring along some of the females, especially those young females. But it really is going to be the males, right? They saw this all along. And now, of course, it's pretty evident for us. This was always, since last week, going to be a race, a Trump-Vance ticket, not versus Joe Biden, but a Trump-Vance ticket versus a Kamala Harris. And that should scare everyone, but I think it particularly scares the men out there. And that's why you're going to see the men coming out in support of Donald Trump in droves, which we've already been seeing. And again, I'm hoping that this kind of brings along the females. I think females have really fallen for this trap of being boss ladies, right? Of feeling like they have to be so independent. I was a victim of that culture, Dinesh. I fell victim to that a few years ago, thinking that I didn't need a man, I didn't need support. And I think that there's kind of been this shift, this cultural shift, especially off of recent events where this country really needs unity. We all need to fall back into our roles that this country was founded on. And that does include the feminine divine nature and the masculine nature. And I think that females have kind of been extra brainwashed into thinking that we need to be so independent, and our morals and our values are just so off right now. So I'm hoping that with recent events and the number of males that are going along and fighting for this country back, fighting for the flag. You saw those fraternity brothers that took the stage at the RNC who held up our flag that day that it was being attacked. I'm hoping some of the females are going to go along with this.
I think one of the things that's disturbed me over the years is the way in which the churches, and this includes the conservative churches,
Yes.
have become kind of feminized in their, not just their rhetoric, but their mode of thinking. You'll find in the Catholic Church someone, for example, they say, well, I became a seminarian. And you say, well, why did you become a seminarian? Well, I wanted to be a wounded healer. So they come up with this kind of pathetic kind of victim rhetoric. And similarly, even in the evangelical churches, which are pretty conservative theologically as well as politically, it's a very feminine ethic. I mean, even in the men's, Bible study, it's all in effect holding hands and this kind of weak need kind of, let's go to a potluck and share our feelings. We're not sufficiently articulate about our feelings. By and large, strong men have been made by suppressing their feelings, not by sharing.
Right.
And so are you saying that you're hopeful, and maybe you even see the signs of it, almost a reaffirmation of a masculine ethic throughout the culture, which may have some political benefits for the Republican Party?
Yes, I do. I think that there is a longing for connectivity and a sense of belonging right now. We have young males and females. I talked a little bit about millennials and Gen Zers that are really noticing what a mess this country has been. And they're now not apathetic. They're no longer the most apathetic groups out there. I think these are groups that actually want to have voices and actually want to make a change. We talk about the lack of the family unit right now, the lack of making God and faith a centerpiece of life. And then, Dinesh, the lack of pride and patriotism and love of country. I think you have young people, especially the males, that are longing for that again, that actually want to step back into that gender role as a masculine men. Make men manly again is my mantra. And they really want to take over that. And I think that's why these young people are asking to get involved. They're asking how they can make a difference. And they're looking, right? When was the last time, Dinesh, that an entire generation felt like they could not afford to buy a home? When was the last time where an entire generation was coming out of school with more degrees on paper, but zero life skills, zero coping mechanisms, and zero plan to how to achieve the American dream? So I am hoping, and I am feeling the pendulum swing of young people that were just, stuck in their parents' basements playing video games, being on TikTok, not having a voice. I think the pendulum is swinging to, let's be in this fight together. It's more of the males right now, but I am hoping that the females come along too.
I mean, there were some glorious moments, I think, in Trump's speech where he had this call to American greatness. In other words, not just make America great again in the MAGA sense, but calling us to new levels of ambition and aspiration and achievement. I mean, higher mountains to climb. This kind of challenge, I think, will resonate with people across the culture. So conservatives emphasize achievement, merit, and even greatness. And let the Democrats basically say that, we're a country of losers and everybody needs to be dependent on the government. The government will take care of you because you're evidently not capable of doing it for yourself.
Handouts for life. Yeah, you mentioned a few moments ago about this idea of playing the victim card, right? And that's what we consistently see with the Democrats. And this is an interesting point, and this is my take. So tell me what you think. But I think what we saw at the RNC with former President Donald Trump, first of all, saying that he ripped up his speech, and the speech that he delivered was completely based on unity. And I have to say, it was my first Republican National Convention, but it was so special. And you have people like Van Jones, for example, coming out and saying, wow, I have not seen a convention like this since Barack Obama. Even someone like a Van Jones is admitting to how unified this conservative and Republican Party is right now. And my take on that, on the victimization and the victimhood, is that seeing how not only authentic, but how strong Donald Trump was on that stage, refusing for even 1 second to play the victim card. I am really hoping that can also attract some females, and that can also show maybe any disenfranchised voter out there, we are not victims in this country. And if someone like a Donald Trump can survive an assassination attempt and refuse to play victim, but instead show this country that this is a time that we need to be united, I'm also hoping that brings along a lot of voters. And I think, of course, you see that just more in general in the conservative party. So maybe someone that's independent or on the fence right now, or maybe even a Democrat, is looking at the speeches from last week and saying, wow, I want to be a part of that. I don't want to be a victim anymore. I want to be a part of that movement and that energy and that culture. But boy, was that week so powerful. Those speeches were something special. And I think we didn't even focus on Joe Biden. That was not a talking point. It was, how do we unite the country? You saw someone like an Amber Rose Dinesh take the stage, and I know there was some backlash there. And I think if you are upset or confused as to why Amber Rose was a speaker at the RNC, I think you missed the whole point. I think her story really resonated with a lot of the American people at home that were watching that don't feel like they belong to either party right now. And they feel confused. And I think that's exactly what the rest of the speeches represented. You can be different. You can think different. You don't have to fit the classic conservative mold or Republican icon that you maybe feel like you had to in the past, but you can still be a part of this movement, and you can still come along You don't have to be a victim.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. And I also hope that Trump is toughening the spine of the Republican Party. I mean, if Trump can survive an assassination attempt, I mean, don't be a wimp. Wear your MAGA hat. You can wear it to the local grocery store, because Republicans tend to be, think of it, for years they've been so weak-kneed that they're reluctant to have a Trump bumper sticker. Someone may scratch my car, or, I'm not going to wear Trump hat. Someone may give me a dirty look in the sub, No.
Let me tell you this. You'll like this story, Dinesh. I have been a reporter on the streets of New York for the past 5 years. 3 years ago, I had a MAGA hat on. It was still on the brink of COVID. I got eggs thrown at me. That took a while to get out of the hair, just FYI. But I had eggs thrown at me as I was doing some live reports on the streets for wearing a MAGA hat. Just a month ago, I was leaving the Bronx rally, the amazing Bronx rally, by the way, that Trump was speaking at, and I had my MAGA gear on. It was very late at night. I forgot I still had my hat on. And I was walking a few blocks. I do a lot of walking in Manhattan, and I was getting a bunch of cheers. I was getting thumbs up. I was getting let's go. And I'm thinking, oh, I must just have a really cute outfit on today. I must be looking good. I totally forgot I had my hat on. And immediately when I realized, my initial instinct was I got a pit in my stomach. I said, oh my God, I have to take this off. And then I realized, wait a minute, I only got messages and cheers of support walking 8-10 blocks on these streets of Manhattan. That would not have happened 3 years ago. That would not have happened maybe even a year and a half ago. So there is definitely a shift. And if I can survive the streets of New York City wearing my MAGA gear, anything's possible.
The winds of change. Hey guys, I've been talking to Caitlyn Sinclair. The website, tpusa.com. Follow her on X at @CSinclairTV. Caitlyn, thank you very much for joining me.
God bless. Thanks, Dinesh.
Subscribe to the Dinesh D'Souza podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify, or watch on Rumble, YouTube, and salemnow.com.